And hello again, dear ones. Rev Briz with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is New Thought Today. It happens every Tuesday here on the New Thought Media Network. We're so grateful that you are with us. We have a special guest with us today. We'll tell you a little bit about him in just a moment. We got lucky here today, and our guest had to be in one place and then is sliding in the back door sideways at about 90 miles an hour to be with us. We're gonna let him get a chance to settle in and breathe for a minute while we introduce you to today's show, and then we'll bring him in just a moment or two. So, Z, good day. How are you, sir? It seems like it's been forever since we've done this.
Yeah, it's been a while and it's good, and it's just all kinds of stuff going on, personal, globally. I mean, it's a good time to take science of mind, new thought principles to solve problems. It's for me because I got them coming from all places, so I'm happy to be here.
I have always found that when there's a lot of stuff going on in your life, that's when these principles are the most relevant, and we have to lean on them the most. So yes,
Yeah,
and in the world, right? That's what this program is about, folks. Is an opportunity to look at what's going on in the world and how the New Thought philosophy can influence and help us move forward, so that we're not stuck in the old way of being. And well, right now, Z, it does appear that as a planet, there's some old type of energy running right now over on the far side of the planet. Folks, I trust the Russians invaded Ukraine, and that is leading to the Ukraine people say, "Yeah, no more." And that's leading to a lot of people around the planet saying no more. Over 4,500 people in 50 different cities were arrested over the weekend in Russia for peace protests, for marching for peace. So a number of peace marches and protests across Russia resulted in over 4,500 arrests. They arrested pretty much anybody they could get their hands on. But there's a lot going on in the planet, and we're going to keep talking about it, and we're going to keep trying to make sense of it in light of this new thought philosophy, so we can see how to be a part of the solution rather than just part of the problem.
Right.
Help us. Do you think has been the biggest thing you've seen in the past handful of days as far as the attitude, where this is headed, between the people of Ukraine and the politicians of Russia?
Well, from my little perspective is that when you look at the humanitarian crisis that Russia has caused and continues to cause, where we have 2 million people now, mainly women, children, and people over 60, because all the men between 18 and 60 are asked to fight in the war. Right. So we have over 2 million people of the most defenseless individuals in the country, and they're being decimated in villages in towns that have no military purpose, no economic stronghold, and so when you look at that, you have to begin to ask, what is the purpose? What is Putin trying to prove, or what is he trying to achieve by doing this? Because none of this is militarily or politically, other than being obstinate, to any advantage that I could see.
It does seem very, very self-defeating in some ways, yeah. So I want to do a quick shout out. Hello and welcome to Ronald. Ronald says, should we watch the news? Yes, Ronald, watch the news. Watch every form of news you can possibly watch. Watch Sky News out of Britain. Watch the DW out of Germany. Watch, if you can find somebody to translate it, watch the Russian news. I watched RT in the first couple days. I watched RT television, and for about an hour, and it was amazing the difference in the messaging. I want to make sure we are not about vilifying the media of any perspective, but you can't get bogged down in just watching one. and you have to be able to watch the multitudes of it. I've said it before. I don't like it, but I watched Tucker Carlson, not regularly, but enough to have an idea. And I don't enjoy it, but I want to know and I want to stay informed of what all the various outlets are trying to say. So yes, please do watch the news. All right. Hey, why don't we introduce our guest here? We don't want to leave him sitting in the background and in the green room for very long. Truthfully, folks, on this platform, it's the white room, and it's very lonely and very stark and white if you're waiting to be on a show. So we want to bring in our dear friend, Rev Muata Rasuli from the San Francisco Center for Spiritual Living. Rev Muata, welcome aboard to New Thought Today. How are you doing today, sir? Oh, well, we've got we want to check your microphone there because we do not have a mic for you. That's going to be in the settings bar below you. Not quite yet either. This is what happens when you do live television flying by the seat of your pants, folks. We want to look for that little button that says settings. Looks like a gear near the bottom. And from that pop-up video, there should be audio and then choices, and your choices aren't coming through. Is there any other choices of video? Oh, there it is.
Is that better?
Yeah.
There, now we've got you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. It's strange. I thought when it said default, anyway, we don't talk about it.
But it would default to the default.
I'm like, well, why isn't it on? I haven't done anything to it. So evidently, you still have to switch it back.
How's it going? How's everything?
I really just work on taking things one breath at a time right now. And when I work on taking things one breath at a time, everything is great. It's when I get outside the moment, then it's so easy to go into lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And that's what I'm working against.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's needed now more than ever because, as the thing, there'll be wars and there'll be rumors of wars.
Thank you for the set of the fat pitch there. This isn't new. This is the human condition. We've always killed one another. As far back as any text that we've ever seen or written or discovered, somebody was going after somebody. And so we have to accept the fact that this is characteristic of what we do as a species. And it's always been some kind of war of another. Now we have the internet, so it's easier to find where the wars are. But it's pretty much like the Bible said, wars and rumors of wars. But we got to remember that we do our fighting with, it says in what's that, principalities and wickedness in high places.
Powers and principalities.
Yes. What you say it again?
Powers and principalities.
Powers and principalities. And the powers and principalities talking about a sovereignty over our own being, as far as I'm concerned. Not so much about the powers and principalities somewhere out there, but the power and the principality of being. And so if that's where the war is, then whatever's going on out here is reflective of the war in here, and the solution is never going to be out there. I'm not saying don't defend. I'm not saying don't attack. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm saying it's important for the light workers, the beings of consciousness, the vanguard, if you will. I don't know how we define ourselves, those among us who've evolved to Homo noeticus or whatever. But we have to hold the line here as far as peace goes, because it's just too easy to point fingers and say, "Oh God, ain't it awful?" But it's not a question what they say about war. It's not a question who's right. It's a question who's left. When the whole thing's said and done. And
exactly.
And the other part that really gets with me is the realization that there will never be a winner, Rev. There's never going to be a winner.
Right.
See, once you understand the concept of what's that? Plurality? polarity.
Polarity, yeah.
Polarity, okay? Where you must have the opposite in order for existence. It must be there. There must be darkness and light because they're the same thing, okay? Good and evil are two sides of the same coin. War and peace are two sides of the same coin. All of these things are just a coin flipping in the air, and we're just calling it while it's spinning. But the consciousness with which we call is way more important than which side it lands on. And so what I'm telling my people is now's the time to dig in to your consciousness. Yes, you can watch the news if you want to, but what I find is scare tactics. And if I start getting nervous, then I need to go into prayer about all of this. My thing is just pray for my own peace. And that way I know I'm praying for peace out here, which means I have to forgive everybody everywhere so that I can resolve my conflict. This is the essence of the teaching. You know, it doesn't mean I don't care about what's happening out here. I just know, tell me my arrogance, I just know I'm at cause.
Yeah.
I just know, well, if I'm at cause, and I believe I am, then what can I do to uncause this?
Right.
You know, in the military, they had an expression, you know, basically, you effed it up.
Yeah.
Uneff it.
Well, that's the thing, you know, when we begin to think that in the very beginning, right, we're gonna go way back cosmically now, there was nothing here as we know it. And then there was a consciousness, if you will, and that sometimes get represented in science as energy or dark matter or whatever, right? But we're talking about we went from what appeared to be nothing into something.
Yes.
And that something is directed by, from all indications, and intelligence that is allowing itself to be explored, allowing itself to be unveiled. And so, like you said, when that begins to happen, the moment it happened, there was a polarity. There was before and after, which are just polarities.
Yes.
And so the more we can begin to look at things in that manner and begin to say, stop labeling the different sides of the polarity good or bad, because that's what's got us here. If we just looked at it as another option or another vantage point on a scale or within a spiral, however you want to look at life, then it's more about understanding it that, okay, when winter comes, it's cold. I can't be outside in short pants. Well, I can, but if I go outside in short pants, that might be a problem. So
depends on how much testosterone you got left running in your body, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to roll the dice on it, like we're getting ready to get another 7 inches of snow and some 7-degree weather here in Denver. Whoever want to try their testosterone on that, have fun. I'm not. I'm gonna get the heater rolling, get some food cooking, and we're gonna call it good. And that's what we have to do when we begin to look at these conflicts, whether they're personal or global. We're all experiencing various vantage points on the spiral of life. And because it's a spiral, it's going to spiral back around.
Absolutely.
And some of us have to watch the news to know where the prayer work is. And some of us maybe ought not to watch the news and stay in the prayer work. And some are going to travel both sides of that line. And because we, as we keep saying, it'd be a mighty boring place if we didn't have the polarity. And the way Holmes used to say it, and the way I was taught, it's that seeming opposites. Mm-hmm. These things seem to be at opposition with each other, but really what's happening is they're working in concert to bring us to that greater sense of peace, to a greater sense of wholeness, to a greater sense of our oneness.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. I just want to, dare we get accused of throwing around machismo with the testosterone model. I want to add to that model that goes this way. When it's 7 degrees outside, it's the wrong time to attempt to grow tomatoes outside.
Yes.
Okay, that's all we're saying. It's not the most ideal time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not possible, but there's some things going to work against it on the natural order of things.
Yes.
You're going against the natural order of things.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, yeah, I agree. I peek at the news, and I measure how much fear registers inside of me when I'm watching it to determine how deep I need to go into my prayer work. Because I know if I'm afraid, well, I'm not the onlyest one, as they say, So I consider myself a professional mystic, and so if my peace is being disturbed, then I know the peace. What did Darth Vader say? There's a vibration in the force. Okay, right now there's a vibration in the force, and we can
Right.
all feel the collective wailing of the force as it flexes back and forth to deal with what's happening right now. And the force has always got a vibration going because that's what it is. It's the vibration. And
Right.
so, what am I doing with the vibration as I'm receiving it? Because if it's true that it's done unto us as we believe, then what are we believing about right now? Because peace and war are always simultaneously existing. What are we talking about most of the time? Okay. We're never talking about peaceful times, even when we're having our most peaceful times. And so,
Right.
now's the time to remember what someone once called the good that has no opposite. Now's the time to heal relationships in your families, to forgive ex-lovers, forgive your old villains and low down dirty no goods that still stalk your memory with pain and fear and rage or whatever it is. This is what's causing our conflict on the outside because we haven't resolved our fear and angst as human beings that and I believe the fear and angst is the feeling that we get when we lose our spiritual integrity. When we lose sight of the oneness, when we step outside that awareness, it's traumatic.
Yeah.
And it produces traumatic cataclysmic results. And so, the vibration from everybody who's outside is going whoop, 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 sending a wave out, and that wave is coming back to us in the form of what we're looking at right now. So I say we're at cause, people. Don't forget you're at cause and stay focused on the truth and full speed ahead.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing you said there when you brought old Darth Vader up in there, because that is a perfect example. Anakin Skywalker, who was Darth Vader, gives you an example of what can happen if you get too caught up in not understanding the oneness and get caught up in the duality, thinking that there are opposites.
That is a great example. Yes.
And so, we might need to go watch a little Star Wars to figure out how to figure this out before it actually gets to a Star Wars.
Well, it's really interesting because I ridiculed ministers so much as a child. Okay, I was so hard on them that it's difficult for me to be one now sometimes, because oftentimes I sound like that old dude from the churches I grew up in, talking about a pie in the sky, by and by you'll get your award when you die. And I was like, nope, I'm going my rewards right here and right now. But as I've evolved as a spiritual being, I realize it's not you're going to get your rewards by and by when you die, but I think it was Paul who said, I die daily. Okay. And when you adopt that persona where every day, every breath, that's why I said breath by breath, I'm getting myself out of the way of divine circuit so that the divine expression can make divine connection in me. And as the divine expression makes divine connection in me, then bing, the light comes on. And I'm not just what is it now? You can see who and what I am because I'm glowing with the energy of that thing. And that's what I'm pulsating out into the field. And I think, people like us have done this throughout antiquity, and we're the ones at the helm right now. And, state of the ship, mate, state of the ship.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. To do this work in the times that are the darkest, to paraphrase Holmes again, right? This is the supreme moment to prove to ourselves of what we truly believe.
Right.
And
that it works.
And that it works. Right. And that we can consciously direct how it works to create the conditions and experiences we desire in our lives.
For sure. For sure. You
And
know,
No
I
better.
saw.
no,
Go.
and I was going to say, and when we look at the humanitarian things that are going on as a result of this, it can only open people's hearts. I mean, you look at that, there's a sadness that happens, of course, but it opens a heart space for us to begin to really, start releasing all this different stuff. And I mean, because people, in the end of the day, people are getting hurt, people are getting killed. And so that should be a light switch for us to say, whatever we can do, whether it's pray, send money, whatever it is that we can do to shine light on this horrible situation and to begin to change it, we need to do it.
Yeah.
I would certainly, yeah.
And I look to Airbnb in this case. They've really, as a company and as as their CEO is leading, their owner is leading this company, they've really been doing what they can, waiving all fees for ingoing and outgoing transactions through the Ukraine at this point. Anyone can go book an Airbnb in the Ukraine and send money to, now do a little bit of research and make sure it's a real person and it's not already some Russian shell that already got on top of this, because it's been going on for a week now. But they also recently just announced that they are encouraging all of their hosts that are able to open their homes for refugees and those that are unsafe at this time, and not just in Ukraine, but in bordering countries as well. And they're going to pick up the tab on that.
Wow.
So they're inviting their hosts, hey, take these people in, we'll make sure everybody's covered on it.
Wow.
Now those are big steps for a company. And again, it's not everybody's got to do something huge and major. Not everybody owns Airbnb.
Right.
But you can go book an Airbnb in Ukraine right now for 17 or 20 bucks a night American. And that money's going to go directly into the hands of somebody that's fighting for their survival, truly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand exactly how what you're saying works.
I would book a room. I would book an Airbnb room in
Okay.
Ukraine,
Yes.
and not show up,
And not show up,
but pay for it.
but pay for it. And so then, is there a building there?
As long as there's somebody there that's receiving that money,
Okay. So then,
we're putting money directly in the hands of people on
okay.
the
So
ground.
someone who owns a spot over there, you book a room with them. And so
Yes.
you're putting money directly in the citizen's pocket.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
directly
That's clever.
in
That's
someone's
very
hand.
clever. Thank you.
However, there are people with less scrupulous intentions that have set up Airbnb accounts in Ukraine right now over the last several days, because this has been going on for several days.
Yeah.
So do a little bit of chat back and forth. You can translate. There's translate buttons. You can and chat back and forth with the owner. Make sure it's an individual, somebody, a real person, not just a company. And it's a direct avenue to put money in people's hands.
Yeah.
And they're not. And Airbnb isn't taking their cut. They're not taking a fee from the host in Ukraine, and they're not taking a cut from us when we book at this time.
Yeah.
It's too bad we can't get like a list of verifiable
Yes.
Airbnbs, because I don't know how one is supposed to
Working on
verify
it.
that it's not a shell when
Yeah.
you don't speak Russian.
Right.
And
We're
you don't
working,
have feet on the ground, and you have nobody.
and there's people working on that too.
Right.
Right. That's I guess that's my overarching point here today is there are individuals doing all kinds of little stuff in the background
Yes.
to make it possible for everyday individuals to do extraordinary things that are actually inspiring the people that pull the strings
Right.
to stand up and be accountable and do the right thing also.
Right.
Excellent. It speaks to the resilience of the human spirits, the creativity of the human spirit, and the way you're like, what are you talking about? I didn't have lemons and I made lemonade. I had lemonade already.
Yeah. You just didn't see the lemonade. You just wanted to focus on lemons.
Yeah, I like it. Just the resiliency and the creativity of the human spirit just keep coming up with ways to express love and connection and community. Throughout, during the pandemic, during the war, during whatever the situation is, during the inflationary times, during whatever the big bad wolf is of the moment. That's why it's just so easy. Like I said, the lions and tigers and bear mentality is just broadcast 24/7, 365, and we're under siege with it. And sometimes they're right there banging and shaking the gates, like we're coming in right now, and that's the way it feels right now.
Yeah.
And you really, for me, I find it's so important to just stay grounded and stay meditative. I talked about in my talk. I just grounded myself right there in front of me. I don't usually do that, but I just said, I just send my roots right now. This is what it is. You know how to ground yourself, but you ground yourself, breathe in, send that energy into the ground, breathe in, send that energy into the ground, stay anchored to the planet. Don't let that energy stay inside of your body, because then you get that parasympathetic nervous system reaction where now you start to shake and tremble because you're off center. Okay. You lost sight of who you were. You got caught up you start identifying with the events out there. And I can do this easier. I'm going to tell you something. It's easier for me to do this watching the news and talking about the Ukraine than it is for me to do this when I'm on a roller coaster. Okay. I don't like it. Okay. So I'm not trying to say big bad Muata, I'm not afraid of anything and, bring it on, but I am saying that. Okay. But there are going to be times where it's going to be harder for me than others. This is not one of my hardest things to do, what we're doing right now, because it's conceptual. I mean, they're not really banging on my door. I see it on television. But, there are people on the ground over there who have to know this, even as they're shooting, even as they're running, even as they're hiding. You have to not allow your fear to overwhelm you as a being. And that's the whole thing. Keep the good and evil part in perspective. Not that you're not experiencing a polarity, but realize there's a balance to the polarity that you are experiencing, and allow that to help you lift you to the place we need to be to move forward.
And it's like that old spiritual that says I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Right now, that don't mean I have to just keep marching in your direction, but I ain't turning around. I got different tactics to make this thing right. And so, it may be prayer this time. It may be meditation next time. It may be throwing a stick at you next time. But whatever it is, because in this oneness, we have to, all things are possible. When it says all things are possible, that's what it means. All things are possible in the oneness of the divine. And so we understand that we understand the balance. Don't try, because if we go too far and throw a stick when it ain't supposed to be thrown, now we done created something else. And now we got an event. Now we got a cause that's gonna reciprocate. Or as we say, the law of correspondence will kick in.
It's already kicked in.
And it's kicking butt. Yeah.
It doesn't have to kick in.
It's already there.
It's already happening. What happens is the repercussions of it become greater and greater and more significant. We go, we start noticing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like the shock waves after the earthquake. If you're at the epicenter, you feel it right away. But if you're not, it starts coming out your way, and you're like, "What the heck happened?" And you don't even know.
Yeah, there's the whole tsunami. Where the earthquake, at the bottom of the ocean, whatever, sends that wave that just gets bigger and bigger. Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah.
And here we are between waves, folks. We're going to take a quick break, let ourselves say hello to a couple of our sponsors, let them say hello to you, and let these two fine gentlemen think about our next question, because this all has been leading me to one place.
Okay.
If this was happening in our country, would you grab your gun or would you grab your Bible when you're heading out the door? We're going to talk about that after the break. Folks, give us 2 minutes. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with you. This is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network.
a stand for love, let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now.
And we're back with more of New Thought today on the New Thought Media Network. I'm Rev Briz, my co-host Rev Z, and our special guest, Reverend Muata Rasuli from the San Francisco Center for Spiritual Living. We've been having a rousing discussion today, and before the break, I shared what I thought would be a provocative question, and I'm pretty sure I know which way both of these gentlemen will lead, but I really believe this is part of the deeper opportunity for everybody, because I have to believe so many people are sitting home asking that question. If this were happening in my country, would I be grabbing a gun or a Molotov cocktail? Would I be going to defend my country, or would I be grabbing my spiritual, my whatever that might be, my Bible, my science of mind, my spiritual cloak, if you will, and heading out into the world? And so I would love to hear how you gentlemen would help someone answer that question.
Okay. You want to go, bro?
I love it when I
Yeah.
love it when I leave them speechless. That's great.
I know, right? Well, it's always, easy to do Monday morning quarterback, right? Or coach the team while you in the stands. And so we have that all the time, especially in this country where these things that happen now over in Ukraine and have happened in other places. It's different when it's you, right? When it's your buildings being destroyed, when it's your children and parents or whatever being lost. And so when we look at that from a spiritual perspective, in terms of what our actions is, of course, if someone is throwing a you, unless you want to be a martyr, right? I mean, there are only a couple of options, right? You can try to run away or get out of the way of it, but if this, then then there's another choice to be made. So, and when I look at this, because I know thing is happening now with some of the requests that the Ukraine are making about airspace and access to aircraft and those mitigate some of this. And if it was in, I have both. I think I'd have my gun and my spiritual guide. But I would go into battle. If I was going into battle, I'll go in there with spiritual principles. I look at and some might not know this history, but when you look at some of the battles in the early time of Islam, Muhammad was leading the battle, right? Mm-hmm. There were rules of war like we have now. You don't kill children. You don't cut down trees, burn sanctuaries. You don't burn or destroy schools, which is the total opposite of what these guys are doing. So there is like Brother said, there's always been wars and rumors of wars as long as we've been on this planet. But there are ways to conduct it, if you will, that makes sense. That is humane. That deadly to humanity, which this thing is happening. It would be a very difficult question, and if it was happening or in our backyard, as they say.
Right. Exactly. Muata?
Well, it's a difficult question because of the fear that it evokes.
Mm.
And before I move forward, I want to go back to what Reverend Robert was saying earlier about the Airbnb, because if we're going to raise the question, if there's a solution, and that I would like to air that too. And so, if anybody's listening, one of the ways we could do to help verify is to verify how long that Airbnb account has been open. Because if it's a
Yes.
brand new account, it's probably something to be concerned about. But if they've
Yes.
been on for several months and several years, then it's more than likely legit. And that would
Yes.
be my first guess about that. So just to circle around, so we're not leaving people wondering, well, hey, what do you do? You know, and, but on your question, which is a very good question. Okay, it's a meat and potatoes kind of question.
Mhm.
Put your feet on the ground question. And I have had a violent life. Okay, now I mean my dad was military. I moved around every 2.5 years or so. I had to make new friends and new enemies every 2.5 years. And so I was always a new guy, and with the pluses and the minuses of that. And I was spanked as a child. I mean, I grew up with violence, and so violence has been a way of life for me. And my daddy had an expression: never underestimate the therapeutic value of a good, you know what. So that's kind of the place that I was from, which I was spawned. However, since I've, as the scripture says, when I became a man, I put away my childish ways. And as I've evolved as a being on this planet, I'm absolutely convinced that I'm stronger by not putting my hands on another human being as long as I have breath in my body. That's my vow. And it's funny because I don't consider myself a pacifist. I don't consider
Mhm.
myself a pacifist. I wouldn't even say I'm nonviolent. I don't know what to call it. But if it
Right.
requires me to go and actually physically do something to another human being, I still have some animals that will catch that, mosquitoes and things like that. Not full Buddhist over here or anything like that. But I've been in life and death situations where nothing but consciousness got me out of there. Had I had a gun, it would have been bad, bad for everybody. And the other people did have guns. And so it's just been too many times when I was out by myself in the middle of nowhere and I spoke to spirit and said, "What do we do now?" And got direction. I did that and everything got resolved. That I remember, to talk this off, my daughter came to me once and some guy
Mm.
she knew had hit her. But she said, "He hurt me, Daddy." My little girl said, "Daddy, he hurt me. Everything in me,
Hmm.
everything in me." Okay. Everything I knew was said, "Well, he's going to die horribly." Okay.
Mm.
Not just die, but it's going to be bad for him. But I've evolved too far to respond to that urge. And it was
Yeah.
very difficult to look my child in the eye and say, "Baby, I feel you, and I'm really, really sorry." And I just said, "I cannot go do what you may want me to do. I don't have that in me anymore. Okay, I'm here for you, blah, 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 but I cannot go do this." Now, I did add, now I know people,
I can put you in touch with a guy.
you know, if you need to go this way, and that's where you're at, I don't want to even take that away from her. Okay. But I
Right.
just know who I am. And so I think I would stay where I'm at and be focused and be praying, because I believe that's the most powerful thing I can do. It's not for everybody. Some people aren't going to have a whole lot of power. They're just going to be terrified sitting there trying to do that. But I'm convinced that I'm more powerful without a weapon in my hand. And so that's the way I would approach it.
Right on. So we've got
Yeah.
definitely one for the Bible and definitely one for both. And to be honest, I don't know exactly where I would fall in this question myself, because for me, and I've been listening to this in other people recently, this is really a battle of values that we're witnessing as well. And any of these internal wars, and you shared a great example, right, Muata, a child, and there is that internal within you that if you want to go to war, there's going to be war. And uh, and so there's this both it comes back, I think, to the value that we feel is being most violated. If the value of family is being most violated, I might respond differently than if you're violating my value of order, or not being an idiot when you're driving your car, or whatever my values are. But we're constantly in the battle of our values and how to respond when one of those feels violated.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well,
And
and and
I
and
just want to
and
say this: if I was, if it's something, see, this is what she said. He hurt me. She didn't say he's hurting me. Okay, because
Right.
that's present tense. Okay, so I can't track him down and execute him like I would want to, but I would stop any harm I would stop harm that I see happening in front of me.
Right.
And so
right.
some people, that stopping harm from happening extends way past from right there in front of them at knocking on their door. The Ukraine is close enough. They're going to go do that. And so I see it as a, when you said one for the Bible and one for both, I don't know if I'm for the Bible. You know,
Okay. Right.
I don't know if that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I know I'm stronger without a weapon in my hand, but I think there's probably at some point I might lose sight of how strong I am without the weapon and pick one up
Mm,
anyway because I lose sight like everybody else of how powerful I actually am without one. But I feel like I could be that same powerful with one as well. It's just yeah, it's like just
Well,
like
right.
it's like we were
you
saying
know,
earlier. I'm sorry. It's like it is the consciousness that you bring to the event, I think, that will
yes,
begin to dictate what happens. Because I
Right.
may have the gun, but consciousness may say, this is not the time to use the gun.
yes,
Or maybe it's a
yes.
prop to get an equal footing. But, and I think that idea about values, because that's what this war is about right now. It's about a democratic value, which Ukraine was trying to implement, and the value of the Russian system, which is a communist system, a totalitarian system. And so, just in that alone, the two systems of values have different effects and different ways of looking at spirit itself already at the very beginning, right? Because the democratic system, in theory, says we believe in a supreme being and a higher consciousness that helps dictate. That's why we should be able to sit down and converse and come to conclusions and make decisions that is for the whole than it is for the few. Whereas
Right.
what's happening over here, if you're looking at the few and saying, looking at me first. And so that's why you have all this stuff going against the oligarchs and the people who are with the money and pumping him up, it seems. And so it gets a sticky question. But I think consciousness, as you both were saying, whichever way you decide to go individually, you better go with conscience. It's gonna be bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why you have compassion on the battlefield, where you see the Russian soldiers are seeking shelter from their own from their own army. And so if
Yes.
somebody's not out there consciously, this is a guy who could be an ally. You're going to shoot him. Okay, I'm indiscriminate. If you come from that direction, I'm going to shoot everything coming from that direction.
Everything moves.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a place and a time and a place for that. I'm not making anybody wrong here. I don't believe in putting horns on anybody or wing halos on anybody either. Where nobody's hands are clean, we're all complicit. And so the question is, what am I going to do with the consciousness that I have right now? Quite frankly, I believe I speak to a refined. I'm not an elitist, but not everybody is not our message is not going to resonate well with everyone.
Right.
Okay, because too many people just can't make the shift into oneness, into unity, into the
Right.
idea that there's a wholeness and a unity and a seamless integration and animating principle. They're stuck in a principle of duality. And when you're stuck in that principle of duality, you're looking for winners and losers, who's right and who's wrong. And it's in that paradigm where we're having the conflict. And that's not
Yes.
where I live. So people that are there don't really hear what we're talking about. We're talking to a different group of people as far as I'm concerned. Anybody
Yeah.
can listen, anybody can hear it, but you got to know your audience. Who's your target audience? And my target audience is the person who's awakened within themselves enough to know that they're part of a whole, something bigger, and that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And so I'm willing to dissolve myself into that hole, because then I become greater than the sum of these parts as well. And I can speak from a more empowered and act from a more empowered place. This is a, it's an
And
advanced awareness.
and I have to trust that what's going on in the world is moving us to a place where more people are awakening to the truth that you're sharing with us.
Yeah.
That by right, yeah, I wasn't old enough yet, but we didn't get to see the Vietnam War unless you were there, other than for 10 or 15 minutes a night on the nightly news. And then later in life, the 24-hour news cycle comes along and we get to see a version of the news or what was going on in the world on a more regular, more almost immediate basis. Now, if you know where to look, you can watch fairly real-time video from the battlefield. You can watch GoPro camera footage, helmet cam footage of soldiers rooting through abandoned equipment, and you can watch them shoot down helicopter, and you can watch all this stuff. Now, it's not fun and it's not pretty, but there's the real timeness that it makes it really hard to ignore that somehow we're all connected, that this everything that's happening has when you've never seen a helicopter get shot down, burst into flames, and fall into a farmhouse, you can't comprehend it. But when you see it, you can put the two and two together, that you're a person on the ground, you were people in the helicopter, and there were other people in the house, and none of them are any better for what we just witnessed.
Right.
That forces us to take a more holistic oneness perspective on life and move towards that greater.
And I think, in some ways, in terms of awake consciousness, this war that's going on now is, in my mind, at least some ways, is an extension of the awareness point COVID brought up.
Mm-hmm.
COVID brought up in my mind an awareness point that said, look, you can't even see me, and I'll take you right on out of here. You can say I exist, you can say I don't exist.
I don't care.
I don't care. I will take
really
you
don't
out.
care. The destruction is coming, right? And you can whatever, right? So that shifts your consciousness to say there are things out here that we can't see, that the naked eye at least, that will so we have to shift our consciousness of how we deal with people, how we relate to people, how we see people, how we take care of ourselves and everything, right? Now we've shifted from the micro to the macro. Oh yeah, and by the way, I can do it in another kind of way too. If you don't listen to the way, we can start doing some other kind of crazy stuff that, someone can get COVID and you don't see them, and all you see is a memorial, whatever. But you cannot not see this, right?
Right.
I mean, you couldn't not see COVID either, because it was
global. What happens is, instead of resolving the conflict, we're going to go into the blame game. Who shot
exactly
John? Okay,
exactly.
One of the things that I'll never forget, and this helps, I think, forms where we're going with this. During the Rodney King riots, which is interesting because Rodney's the one guy wasn't rioting, but they named the riots after him.
Right.
And Margaret Stewart's my minister at the time, Dr. Margaret. She comes out and she says that Sunday, she said, while I was looking at the news, I thought to myself, my God, look what they've done. She says, and then I realized, oh no, my God, look what we have done.
Yeah.
And this is collective consciousness, people. This is collective consciousness. So what are we adding to this? More angst or more peace? That's my question. Whether the question about which one are you going to pick up, I want to know, what is your contribution? What is your contribution to this? More peace, more angst, more fear, more rage, more harmony, more connectedness. That's the question. And if you have that sense of, well, I want to provide more connection, then seek places and means like Reverend Robert already started out telling us about the Airbnb. I think that's brilliant. I love that. What else can I do? How can I be of service? And put yourself on the front lines in consciousness. Okay, not everybody's going to take to the streets. Not everybody's, some of us are introverts, even though we have an extroverted job, we're basically introverts, and we're gonna not, it's harder to get us out. But that doesn't mean I'm not active. It doesn't mean I won't do what's absolutely necessary, including putting my life on the line, because as far as I'm concerned, my life doesn't even belong to me anymore. I'm here to make a difference. And if the difference that I need to make is throw myself on a grenade or, put myself in harm's way for whatever, then I'm down to do that. And if that means I have to take somebody out, I'm down to do that too. I just want to be conscious when I do it. I want to be conscious whatever I do. I want consciousness to be the driving framework and the energy that has me doing what I'm doing, or I'd rather do nothing at all until I'm aware of what that is.
Yes.
Until I'm aware of what that is. Because I honestly believe that I'm led, I'm guided, and I'm directed by the Holy Spirit. And what needs to be done, when it needs to get done, how it needs to be done, and with whom is already inside of me, just waiting for my opportunity. I'm like, now, coach, I got you on the bench for a reason, son. I'll tell you when it's your turn to get in the game. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's perfect. It's like when you were talking about them tomato seeds. Now, in a couple of weeks, be time to plant them tomato seeds.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
nobody's going to have to tell that tomato seed what it is, when it needs to sprout, what it needs to do. Once it gets in the right environment, it will awaken to itself and say, "Ooh, look at here, go to work."
Folks, I can always tell when springtime has arrived in the Rockies. We're staring down the barrel of a winter snowstorm. It's going to be 7 degrees tomorrow, but I know that springtime has arrived in the Rockies because Reverend Elzia is talking in gardening metaphors. And we've got a whole nother, we got 6 months of that for you now. So we're going to have a battle in the gardens this year. He and I.
That's because they are the best. They are a representative of us in our truest form. Entity that has everything it needs to create an environment, a growth, a health, all unto itself. If it intakes environment as a whole thing, I am never separated, and then it works.
It's as close to God as we get, man. We get to make our own little forest right there. I got my own little ecosystem here. I'm God. No, you don't get to grow here. No, not you.
Exactly.
See, I like growing zucchinis because I could just put them in the ground and walk away and forget them and come back in 3 months and there's food.
Yeah, they're like that. Yeah. Good point.
Where to?
Folks, if you wonder what you've stumbled into, this is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. We're just about wrapping up for the day, but we've had a great conversation here. I want to say thank you to Rev Muata Rasuli from the San Francisco Center for Spiritual Living for being with us today. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Always exciting for me, and thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you. Exciting for us as well. I hope you'll come back again and again and be with us again in the future as well. We're going to take a quick break and say thank you to our committed givers and sponsors and all the people that make this network possible, folks. But we do invite you to stick around for our final thoughts, which we'll bring to you in just 1 minute, right after we say thank you. Please join us.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome OM Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Heckerland Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you to all of our committed givers and those that make this network possible. If you'd like to get your name on that movie and get involved with what we're doing, please head on over to the website ntmedia.org. Click on the donate button. All right, gentlemen, final thoughts. We'll start with our favorite guest, our newest favorite guest. I don't like favorites. Let's just say our greatest guest of the day, Reverend Muata. Final thoughts for today.
Well, we have to embrace our shadow here, people. You know, the places where we fear, we have to embrace our shadow and accept the fact that, you know, the human being is capable of incredible kindness and incredible cruelty. And both of these things are always happening within us. And just like that old fable with the, you know, Indian grandfather and his grandson, you know, the wolf that wins is the wolf I feed. So it's a real time to pay attention to, you know, what wolf you're feeding right now and what you're feeding them, because you know, the moment has come. You know, you're on deck. Okay, this is your big opportunity, and if you want to know if you came to do something important in the world, you have, and it's time to do it right now. And so you're being called. Spirit is calling you to arms, because consciousness is calling you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, the closing thought is, remember that conscious energy vibration that vibrates just like light, just like sound, forever. It don't go nowhere, right? That's why we can send these satellites up to do exactly that. So let's begin to be conscious of the energy, as Muata was saying earlier, that we are putting out, whether we're putting nervous energy or whatever that conscious point is. Hold it so that it reverbs out, and everybody begins to get a feel of it. And when the resonance, they'll fall right in line.
Yeah.
If I hit a C note right now in this room, everything that vibrates at C will begin to, everything that resonates with C will begin to vibrate right now. And that's what we got to do in the world, is send that vibration out, and everything that resonates with it will have a change.
For me, I constantly I'm reminded there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. And what that means is we have to, as these two distinct gentlemen are saying, begin that vibration within. Plant that seed of peace within myself, come to peace with myself, so that I can be a vessel and an expression of peace out into the world. On behalf of the New Thought Media Network, thank you for being with us. This is New Thought Today. Please do share, like, and subscribe. Hit any old button you want, as long as the thumbs are pointing up and not down. We're going to be out of here for now. We'll be back next Tuesday with more here on the New Thought Media Network, New Thought Today. Until then, peace.
Peace. God bless.